Absolutely. I think we've probably got time for one more question. Yeah, as long as we keep it quick. Can we move on to one about data? Yeah. So, data obviously is the key to all of this. We touched on it earlier with that kind of thing. But I just want to talk about, I think, what is the biggest challenge, what's the biggest opportunity? We haven't got long, so if we keep it a little bit short. Nick, what do you think?
Something we touched on earlier around the problems around data is the new idea of securing that, the ownership of it, the privacy of it, and how we deal with that, particularly in the airline industry, cross-border, because you're going through different legislative domains. So it's almost like does the airline industry itself need its own data protection commitment so it can have a global standard of privacy? Yeah.
That's not going to happen unless everyone adopts the one in Germany, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we find all the time actually when we do work with airlines to try and find just simple things like contact details. We can do that and correlate between different data sources, but then you have to check and see where the customer is, or where the airline is, or where the airport is, and make sure you're not about to, breach data protection laws.
I think the thing about the other interesting bit about data is it's not so much the data that you have, but your ability to ask an interesting question of it. So you can have everything, you can increase your touch points, increase your measurements, but who can make a really good question? That's something Ursula mentioned early on. How do you ask a good question of the data so you get an insight that you can leverage? And that's a different type of thinking.
Totally is, yeah. Well, what do you think, Ursula, about data? How are airlines doing on this, in your opinion? What are the wins? What are the losses?
Yeah, I think many are actually quite lost with it, because this trendy word of big data, there is actually lots of data around, and there has been actually for years, but they haven't really been able to capitalize on it because they didn't think about what they can use it for. And they have also sometimes maybe not done the first step to simply even ask the customer, ask the staff, just ask some of the simple questions to know, already get some indications of where your first steps can be in terms of what data you can sell, how you can better approach them, what they are really looking for, where to put your priority. I think there are two big trends, so it's very important to slice the elephant before you can eat it, to really think about what you want to do with them, and then step by step where you can make the biggest difference, and then approach it. I think there are probably a few really big opportunities, like blockchain, which can help in terms of working with third parties to get more efficient, to be able to, in terms of selling your ancillary revenues, to do this directly with a customer in simple ways, and even cut out some of the complexity and some of the cost and inefficiencies which are there today. In terms of social media messaging, there are some bringing all of this together to really then understand, to get this unique customer view. I think there are big opportunities in there, and some airlines have started working on this. And with that, you can almost come to this vision of your personal shop assistant in your corner shop who really knows you well, but who is there for you 7x24. And then this concept of dark data, which is also increasing, which is really looking all of the data which are around and really try and start some of your big problems. And this can even be in network planning, this can be operational, or how you communicate with your customers to really see what are customers really asking for, in terms of whether it's destinations, whether it's certain product experience elements which they are really lacking, and help this to focus and prioritize.
Totally. Kevin, what do you think? What's good and what's bad out there?
I mean, data connects the dots in everything in the industry, doesn't it? At a fundamental level. And interestingly, I remember when the big data moniker started being bandied around a few years ago. I remember someone very senior at a GDS, a global distribution system, saying, we were the first big data companies in travel, but we just didn't know what to do with it. And I think what's happening is that people are realizing not only what they can do to slice and dice it, but also how they should try and collect more of it. One, without being creepy, two, by adhering to data protection laws and things like that, and then ultimately try and make the customer passenger experience better than it is. Now, whether that, that's where you have the fine line between providing a service and providing an enhanced service, or whether you just end up using it for marketing, which obviously has that kind of irritation factor to it. What I think where this area gets really interesting is around the idea of sharing of data, and that does go back to what Nick was saying and others have said around data protection and who should have the right to do this, that, and the other. And but the point is, you're forever hearing airlines and airports in particular saying, well, we would like to be able to improve the customer experience because we've got all this great data, and it would be wonderful if we could connect the dots between what airlines are doing and what airports are doing. But often they don't want to share the data with each other because they want to have in inverted commas ownership of the customer. And ownership of the customer means everything from marketing to CRM, etc., etc. But are we giving up the opportunity to improve the customer experience for the sake of, selfishly, if that's the right word, being the ones who have ultimate ownership of the data? And until airlines and airports in particular, in this particular space, what we're talking about today, figure out how to do that, and some of them are, but I don't think that's a broad trend across the industry because of this ownership of data issue, and that's ownership from a legal perspective and a strategic perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you there. It's even if the customer said yes, go for it, share everything. We still have the ownership of the customer issue, which I think once everyone realizes the customer owns the customer, and then they own their own data, and there is a mechanism to allow them to give those permissions more freely, I think everyone probably will do really well. I think it's just everyone needs to get over it a little bit. It's quite we like I said, and we're still trying to find an airline, an airport, and another airline partner that want to sit down around a table. We've offered to do a free workshop on that if anyone wants to work out how we can anonymize the data, the contact details as it gets passed through, or however, to try and enhance that customer experience, because the customers are the ones that are losing out here, and if they're losing out, it means somebody's not making money, and I suspect everyone's stopping each other. Everyone's stopping that money from getting made at all, regardless of stealing it from each other, which I think is what the actual argument is about. People think that they're trying to control who makes the money, but no one's making the money.
Yeah, so if there's a pot that's available, then, exactly, people can take a slice of it, as opposed to no pot. No,
it's not impossible. It's just used it.
And to your point a little while ago, and not wanting to give you the opportunity to talk about 15 below, but obviously what you guys are doing, which is around communications. Airlines and airports not sharing data or not just figuring out how to do it comes back to that example that somebody gave. I don't know if it was you, Al, which was someone with the app gets the notification and the information from the airline before the people standing in the departure hall, and then you create that kind of division of customers, which ultimately can't be the right thing, surely. So, if everyone just was able to work out a way of managing the data for the benefit of the passenger, surely they are the most important people in this. I've put my utopian hat on a little bit here, but that ultimately should be the point, right?
Absolutely, I totally agree. Yeah, there's only one. I always say there's only one thing worse than not knowing what's going on. It's when you can see someone else does. It's more frustrating.